best current affair.
Hi everyone, the Bubb Report is committed to being fearless, balanced, and independent, bringing you the stories that matter most without compromise. Now do us a favor, remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. You can also watch us on GBN TV every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Catch us on WPG10 television every Sunday at 8 p.m. Your support helps us to keep journalism free from bias and influence, and together we can make sure every voice is heard and every fact is verified. Thanks for watching.
We seek the truth.
Would you be handing your resignation to the Minister of Culture tomorrow, sir?
No, I will not.
The leader of the opposition, you have accused your government, sir, of using the Grenada Development Bank to facilitate the financing of personal loans for certain government ministers.
The other side is in no position to talk about those issues, and I will leave it there.
We discover new perspectives.
You know his leadership style, and so many are saying, why are you coming now to talk about those issues?
Now is the time to speak. You have the right to decide who will take over.
And you met with Dr. Mitchell, and perhaps you might want to confirm what that meeting was about in your response. But
Dr. Mitchell, like myself, are Grenadians.
We ask the right questions.
why was there no report on the work done of the commission? And how is this new committee different from the commission that was initially established back in 2022? So who are these elements that are using you?
I'm disappointed in my political leader.
And why is that animating those political conversations now?
It's a very interesting question.
The Bubb Report with Dr. Kellon Bubb. Thought-provoking, truthful, unbiased, and truly original reporting.
Tell us, a commissioner of police, tell a politician, back off. You have no knowledge of the law. You have no knowledge of law enforcement. You cannot force my officers to do the wrong thing.
But that is somebody's son. That is somebody's child. That is part of a family. And I think that is the part that they are missing out.
Because E and F are apt to be used oppressively.
It's like because we don't see disabled people as sexual beings, which is ridiculous.
You mean they don't want to listen to your version of science? They have their own science. You have your science.
We need to do is teach people to think and not what to think.
Today, it's too bad that everybody do what they want.
If I could forgive Bernard Ford, then I could forgive Bob Morris too. And today, on this day, I no more have anything in my heart for what he did.
The education system has to be very fluid and dynamic because we're living in very different and changing times.
Treating all your citizens equally, all your citizens fairly, recognizing each group, not discriminating against one or the other.
Don't go there.
You are a technocrat. I mean, you can speak to whether or not it was appropriate or inappropriate for that to occur. Would you have done that as a permanent secretary?
Politicians get the information from wherever source that they can.
that's going to be the extent of your answer.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
There's a lot of noise around the data protection bill that, in my respectful view, is not warranted.
I was one of those making noise, and it's simply because I was concerned about that specific section 33.
Don't go there.
Are you going to be offering yourself up as political leader of the party?
I see you've called me here for much more than diplomatic passports. I don't mind that.
Don't go there.
What is the relationship like between you and your leader, Dr. Mitchell, your boss, Dr. Mitchell?
I'm not sure how to explain how to answer this question at this time. I prefer not to answer.
Don't go there.
They said that you approached the bank for the loan before the election and that it only materialized after the election. There are also conflicting reports around the quantity of monies that were received. What is the reality here?
People try to extort the truth and to make all kinds of things about it. I just stay quiet. So if you notice, I was really and truly quiet about the whole matter.
Well, except with not with the New Today newspaper. The New Today newspaper reported on this, so I'm not sure you were quiet on this. Go ahead, Honorable. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to answer your question, right?
Don't go there.
I think we just spoke at length about the regularization framework. So
yes, we did. But let us talk, Prime Minister. Let us talk about the workers who are dismissed.
The Bubb Report. We go there.
Hello, everyone, and a pleasant Sunday to one and all. We welcome you to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellen Bubb, and we're happy that you can join us for another Sunday. Of course, here in the diaspora, it is spring forward, so the time has been adjusted with the time back in Grenada. So for those of you in the diaspora, the program is no longer being streamed at 9, but at 10 a.m. in line with the time in Grenada. And of course, as we get started, we want to do the usual roll call as we do. We have Joanne Brathwaite here. She's saying good morning, Dr. Bubb, listeners and viewers at home and in the diaspora. Have a wonderful Sunday. We have Onika St. John, usual regular viewer. Onika, welcome. We have Victor Palmer, Onesta Jose. John Mack is also here. Good morning, sir. Please convey greetings to your wonderful wife for me. We also have I believe that's Janine Pascal, who is watching from Caliste to the extreme south of Grenada. It's a beautiful and sunny and windy day here today in the Spice Island. Janine is saying here. We have Agnes Henry. We have Lydia. Then we have again, Janine Pascal is saying, I'm looking forward to another interesting program today. Welcome on board, folks. Welcome on board. And of course, as you're coming into the room, please do us a favor by liking and sharing this program. If you've not subscribed to our YouTube channel, we do encourage you to do so. We also have Deborah Brown, who's joining us from Canada. Deborah, good morning. We have a viewer, Kwashi, Mr. Kwashi, I believe, who's joining us from Palm Coast. Where is Palm Coast in Florida? I've never heard of it. And there you are. So welcome in the room, sir. We have also here Bilal Roberts. We have Bilal Roberts is here as well. And of course, folks, we are going to get right into it. Of course, as you're coming into the room, please remember to like and share this week's program as you're coming into the room and subscribe to our page. But we want to get immediately into this week's editorial. And of course, an inflation shock triggered by the illegal U.S.-Israel attack on Iran could wreck a fragile global economic recovery that has been expected to gain momentum last year. Now, with oil and gas prices spiking, despite a pledge from the regime in Washington to protect tankers making their way through the crucial Strait of Hormuz shipping choke point, central bankers and economists have warned over the weekend that a prolonged conflict could increase retail prices around the world, as if things have not been getting more expensive. But here we are with another illegal war in the Middle East again. And of course, these inflation prices could force businesses to rip up growth focus for this year. Now, on Friday last, the International Monetary Fund's managing director, Christiana Georgieva, said a 10% increase in energy prices that persists for a year would push up global inflation by 40 basis points and slow economic growth by 0.1 to 0.2%. Now, some economists argue that a jump in the price of energy and transportation costs, significant though they are for households and businesses, could prove to be a sideshow if the illegal bombing of Iran by the United States and Israel destabilizes financial markets, already worried about a ballooning artificial intelligence stocks and the impact of US import tariffs. In fact, there are economists who are saying that the next bubble to burst will be the AI bubble. In the same way there was a burst of the dot-com bubble in the 2000s, in the year 2000, as well as the housing bubble in 2008. And we know what that housing bubble did to both global markets. All spurned by the West, by the way. This is all Western. This is not China. This is not any of the BRICS countries. Now, there are also analysts who worry about the chaos prompted by Iran's retaliatory bombing of Kuwait, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, and most recently, Azerbaijan, which could trigger a further reordering of global strategic alliances, and not to the West's benefit. Now, O'Neill, who is, of course, a former backbencher in the United Kingdom's House of Commons, said the White House appeared to have given little consideration to the geopolitical impact of its opportunistic assassination of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and subsequent bombing campaign. He says the Gulf states will be thinking that the United States is an unreliable partner and be drawn towards China, India, and Brazil, which of course is part of the BRICS framework, as we know already. So of course, folks, the Bubb Report will be watching this space. We'll be watching, of course, a local entrepreneur, legendary veteran entrepreneur, Mr. Christopher Diali, sounded the alarm last week about the upcoming inflation crisis, as if inflation was not already bad in the Caribbean. And folks, as we go to break, I do want to share this news.
Best Current Affairs feature program. The nominees are Beyond the Headlines, Grenada Broadcasting Network, hosted by Colin Dow. To the Point, GBN. We Culture, GBN. Community Forum, MTV. Host Byron Campbell and Christopher Diali. The Narrative, WPG-10, host Callistra Faria. And The Bubb Report, Kellan Bubb. And the winner is The Bubb Report, Kellan Bubb. Of course, Dr. Kellan Bubb is not with us this evening. Congratulations, sir. Yes, I have Kellan's uncle here this evening. He will be accepting on behalf of Dr. Kellan Bubb. Congratulations, Dr. Bubb. Yes.
And folks, of course, that was last evening at the Media Awards that was held at Pier 57. The Bubb Report, as you just heard, is pleased to announce that it was voted the best current
congratulations once again.
The best current affairs program in Grenada at the annual Media Awards ceremony that was held at Pier 57. Of course, I do want to thank all of you who voted in that category for a humble platform. Your recognition of what we do validates the hard work that we continue to put into this platform, which was founded following the untimely passing of the late George Grant. Now, our commitment to you is that We will continue to serve the national and regional communities through unbiased, on-bot, and on-bot journalism. Because in this era, when content is siloed into one-sided information ecosystems, there are those who must do the work of unapologetically speaking truth to power and holding the powerful accountable. So again, thank you to the Media Workers Association and of course to my uncle. I was able to get my uncle out of the house and to accept the award on my behalf, and to the Media Workers Association and to all of you viewers who make this program possible. This program will not be possible without your viewership every Sunday. So thank you again for that. So folks, we're going to take a break and come back for the first segment of the program. Please stand by. Hi everyone. The Bubb Report is committed to being fearless, balanced, and independent, bringing you the stories that matter most without compromise. Now do us a favor. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. You can also watch us on GBN TV every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Catch us on WPG10 television every Sunday at 8 p.m. Your support helps us to keep journalism free from bias and influence. And together, we can make sure every voice is heard and every fact is verified. Thanks for watching.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. Now, a 2020 Inter-American Development Bank study titled Regional Comparative Report Survey of Individuals Deprived of Liberty between 2016 and 2019 found that prisons in the Caribbean do not necessarily have effective or sufficient rehabilitation and reintegration programs. In aggregate terms, 41% of inmates surveyed across Latin America and the Caribbean in a 6-country study were recidivists or repeat offenders, compared to 33% of Latin American prison populations. Now, in the Caribbean, roughly 40% of recidivists return to prison within 6 months to 1 year of release, depending on the country. Also, less than 1 in 5 prisoners have access to rehabilitation and reentry services, which have been shown to reduce recidivism and repeat offending. Now, in order to increase the effectiveness of penitentiary policies, the report recommends broad reforms that take an integrated approach to security and justice in the Caribbean. These key recommendations include establishing programs to divert people who have committed non-serious offenses, and reforming judicial procedures and strengthening pre- and post-release services, among others. Now, Alejandro Hippolyte's tragic death has spurned this platform to ask questions about the nature and scope of prison rehabilitation and programs at Grenada's Lone Penitentiary, and to critically assess the efficacy and effectiveness of such programs so that when inmates are released, they do not recommit crimes and become recidivists on the prison system. Of course, as a caveat, it's important to note that the study that I just cited did not do any research in Grenada, but of course, in the context of research, there is always the tendency to have generalizability. So therefore, the findings may be relevant to Grenada because, in fact, they also surveyed, I believe they surveyed Barbados, St. Lucia, Trinidad and Tobago, and I believe it's one of the Leeward Islands. It's escaping me now. I have to go back and look at it. But here to make sense of the scope of prison rehabilitation program in Grenada is Mr. Leon Cornwell, who is the head of rehabilitation at His Majesty's Prison, as well as Mr. Evelyn Sylvester, who is head of the training officer, head of training, are both attached to His Majesty's or Richmond Hill Prison in Grenada. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome to this week's edition of the Bubb Report.
Good morning, Dr. Bob, and good morning to your listeners.
Yes, absolutely. We felt, of course, we know what occurred a couple of weeks ago in the context of Alejandro Hippolyte's tragic demise at the hands of someone who was released from Richmond Hill Prison. of course, the narrative around it, and of course, we have to caveat that by making the point early on that this case, because it's now a criminal justice matter, it is sub judice. So we're not going to be making too much comments on the scope of the case, except to say that we wanted to have a conversation about what happens at Her Majesty's Prison with respect to rehabilitation, training, and recidivism. So, Mr. Sylvester, I do want to begin with you because I think it's important to strike a positive note. I personally have known folks who were incarcerated at the prison, and upon their release from prison, they went on to do positive things with their lives. Some of them have started their own small businesses. And of course, we have to appreciate as well that given the context of Grenadian society, in order to find a job in an establishment, you have to have a police record. And if it shows that you were incarcerated, it makes it difficult to do so, right? But I have known folks, at least 2 people, who were incarcerated, who were released, and who have turned their lives around for the better. So I think it's important for us to establish that there are positive stories. And we want to begin, Mrs. Sylvester, by highlighting those. So let's talk about it.
Yes, I guess it have a lot of myths surrounding prisons.
Yes.
It's obvious from the stories people hear. What the general public doesn't hear is about success stories. Persons who actually come to prison,
yes,
and make meaningful changes in their lives and return to society and give back to society positively. I know, yes, the prison doesn't have the resources at the moment to capture everyone that comes in. Firstly, the person has to want to change. Rehabilitation doesn't happen with a flick of a finger. It's not magic. The person must want to change. And once that person really has the mindset to change, they can. And the prison do offer some avenues, although maybe insufficient for those persons to change. For example, the prison industry, which is used to actually train persons, individuals in different areas. So, for example, the prison bakery. Once that person gets the opportunity to work there, they can leave the prison and actually go there and what persons actually call beforehand to ask when persons who work at the bakery leave in prison so they could actually get employment. But
I just have to say the prison bread is some of the best bread I tasted while living in Grenada. I just needed to say that. Go ahead, please.
Yes, we do keep a high standard
yes.
in the bakery.
Yes.
And the opportunities are there. For example, the prison farm, where programs teach persons in crop production, animal rearing, poultry production, and so forth. It happens. I guess the narrative is that everything in the prison is bad. Oftentimes, persons don't really hear about the success stories that persons do leave prison and find meaningful employment or create their own employment out there and never return to the prison. It happens. What we do hear about is those who oftentimes return, the recidivists, over and over. Those persons are the difficult ones to treat. Most times it's underlying problems that we as an organization don't have the resources to actually tackle ourselves. Drug use, drug and alcohol use, anger issues, mental ill challenges, it's often difficult to actually provide programs because imagine we have a population of 387 male and 3 female at the moment. To capture every individual in the prison and offer a tailored approach to their rehabilitation, that might be difficult. Being we only have one counselor, Mr. Cornwall, attached to the prison. So it's quite a lot to handle at the moment. The prison has made step by we had the school established providing educational programs, but the rehabilitation unit hasn't been around for in terms of prison for quite a long time, and really lack the resources to really capture everyone.
Yes, Mr. Cornwall, let me bring you in, sir. Rehabilitation, again, success stories. Folks that you've counseled, of course, and as Mr. Sylvester said, of course, you have to be willing to want to be counseled or to be willing to change, right? In order for that change to happen, right? It all comes down to some measure of individual responsibility. So let's talk about those, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bob. Two things before I get directly into this.
Yes.
Because I'm conscious, as you in fact started off, that what would have spurred this program is a tragic situation with a young led sister. And I want, to really express, the pain with which we all feel that situation. As you say, it is sub judice, but I think that it's very important to recognize what the family would have gone through. Even my own family, because my wife taught that young lady. My wife is the head of the nursing program and taught that young lady and was her academic advisor. So she was often in my wife's office. My wife cried like if it was her own personal child. So it has been a very tragic situation. And it raises the question of rehabilitation and its effectiveness in the prison, right? The second thing I want to thank Mr. Sylvester, because to one extent, Dr. Bob, it's two different, you can say, arms. Although Mr. Sylvester is head of training, he's not head of training of inmates. He's not involved directly in the rehabilitation unit. He's head of training of prison officers. But as one ought to understand rehabilitation, yes, right? And he handled himself quite well, but he's not directly involved in that area. But one would appreciate that the preparation of prison officers is very important in terms of overall strategy of rehabilitation, right? Even though we have a rehabilitation unit. In terms of success, I agree with you. There are individuals, persons who have been able to come into the prison and live as better individuals. In fact, in my own counseling, I often say to the guys, when you come into the prison, you never leave basically the same way as you came in. You either leave better on the upswing, I usually draw a chart, or on the downswing. And it all depends on what happens in the prison and the response to the programs that we have there, right? There have been one particular case I just wanted, because that touched me so much. It was a young man who was considered a serious bad boy. In fact, to use a modern term, he would have been considered in the prison, that's years ago, a gangster. He was an enforcer of all kinds of things in the prison, got involved in acts of violence. And then something happened that led to him coming to me, and I began counseling with him, right? And it was a situation where I had, apart from the counseling sessions with him, I had to be meeting with him outside of that because he came under tremendous pressure from some of his former associates who would say things like, boy, you learn Bogo teeth your head, boy, this, that, Bogo will help you, Bogo will give you this, Bogo will give you that. But he held firm. There were noticeable changes in his life in there to the extent that this bad boy, this gangster, was assigned to the reception to work there, which is a very sensitive area, right? When he was released from prison, we do not have a system of tracking guys. And all of that is part of the weaknesses and so of the program there. There are many, many, many weaknesses. If you want to focus on that, we could spend the whole month.
Yeah.
But one night, I saw this person coming well-dressed, short jacket, looking trim, nice, and I thought it was a pastor. And he came to me and he said, Mr. Cornwall, how are you? I said, I'm fine. And he said, how are you looking at me as if you know me? I said, yes, I know you, because there was face recognition, but I couldn't put a name.
Right.
He said, well, who am I? So I started calling names of different persons I know as pastors, religious persons. So he started to laugh. And then he said, Mr. Bogo, you forget me, man. Once somebody used the term Mr. Bogo, I knew it was somebody who was in the prison. And he gave the name that he was known of. I don't want to call it here. Gave the name he was known of in there. Change, transform. He was, in fact, at that time, working as an orderly in the hospital. And he did so for quite some time. He has now moved to another area of work. I have used him to come and speak to other inmates in the prison, and even use him to go on a program that we do at secondary schools. I brought him at GBSS to speak with students there at GBSS who are on a path that could lead to crime and so. So that is one of the most outstanding situations. Then you have another case of one young man. Again, I'm talking about serious crime here. I'm not talking about a petty crime, just going to somebody saying, oh, I mean, crime is crime, you can say, but I'm talking about serious crime that could really affect our country in a serious way, the economy and everything, and so. And this young man, eventually, his change was so noticeable, he became part of a church, has recently graduated with a diploma in theology, and is an example. He has started his own business in which he does even export. That's a wonderful situation. And there are many other cases I can give, but I'll tell you, to me, it's not enough. It really is not enough. People who know me will know of my dissatisfaction over all of this. Members of staff will know I'm very vocal on that. It's not enough. And I think that we have begun the process recently of rethinking this whole way of going about the work of rehabilitation so that we can capture more persons. That would be my opening statement.
Yes, sir.
I don't know whether you have follow-up.
Absolutely. And thanks, gentlemen, because I thought it was important to establish that benchmark, that baseline. But Mr. Cornwall, I want to stay with you. But of course, before I get to you, sir, Mr. Sylvester, let's talk about the training of prison officers. What components of the training involves things like understanding mental health responses and things like that? Is that something that prison officers get trained in, so that perhaps they can make a distinction perhaps between someone who might be an inmate that does not have mental health issues versus an inmate that does? I can just unmute the mic, sir.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Sorry about that. Yes. So the last training that happened, that was concluded in January, we made a conscious effort to include these areas. The last training went to correctional custodial operations, NVQ level 4. It aimed to bring our standards up to those of other regional countries, and part of that training would include mental health awareness and understanding inmates and so on. So we see training as part of the overall change in the prison towards rehabilitation and so forth. You might not be aware, but we do have a lot of persons in the prison system with mental challenges. One might say we might be the second Monge in the country because we have quite a few individuals. So we made the effort to actually include that in the last set of training. I made an important part of that training.
So, okay, and Mr. Cornwall, I'm going to bring you in here around the whole question of rehabilitation. What specific rehabilitation programs exist at the prison? So an inmate comes in, is there, when an inmate comes in, is there a check-in process that happens, an intake process that happens to say, okay, well, based on the length of your sentence, this is the course of rehabilitation that you would be going on, or based on the severity of the sentence, this is what rehabilitation looks like. What does the system look like there?
You wonder what one word answer, sir?
Yes.
The answer is no, we do not have that system, but we are now considering establishing that system. Sentence management, as it would be called.
Sentence management, okay.
Sentence management, right? It's just in recent time, we had a retreat of the executive of the prison in which that is under consideration, and it is very, very important. But if you miss, because that's how I think, right? If you miss,
yes, no, absolutely, yes.
I know people are looking just for snippets. I think things must be put into context. I really
and context matters,
right?
Yes, and I'm not a snippets guy at all. Yeah.
Right. Rehabilitation at the prison was started by prisoners themselves. I think the public really needs to know that. When the 17 were in prison, in other words, Bernard Code and the 17 as well known, we started rehabilitation in the prison with the approval of Commissioner Winston Courtney and his support, his real support. I would tell you, and we need to know the history behind that so we can understand that process, the challenges that process has. Otherwise, people can go the idea, well, oh, you have a counselor there, you have a this there, and nothing seems to be happening. We face tremendous resistance against that approach of working in the prison. Well, I guess because we are 17 of us and we are in, a group and so on, and the commissioner himself supported it, we are able to get things done along the lines of education and so on, right? There was no official counseling or anything like that. But I mean, those of us who understood something, we would act as kind of peer counselors for inmates. So that was carried without any budgetary support from government. We ourselves got our families and friends to provide material and all sorts of things to get that program going. When it became clear that there would be release of the 17, you need to understand that the government then appointed Miss Ursula Antoine of blessed memory as the principal of the education program. Now, all of the teaching was done by inmates themselves. Miss Antoine, even though she was principal, she did not teach. She did not teach. She was just managing the program. Then there was a change of government, and you know things go in Grenada, right? And I don't want anybody to label me one way or the other, because only one label I can carry. right? And that is a Christian, right? That's the only label I carry. But I know people like to label, and so when there was a change of government, then another person, Ms. Harley, became the principal. And then in 2012, by that time I'm out now, and in 2010, I was appointed as counselor at the prison. I always say it was a brave and bold decision by Prime Minister Tillman Thomas to do so, because we know the whole history that surrounds those of us, and very bold and brave, and I've always been very grateful for that opportunity. By 2012 now, there was no school principal, and the then commissioner, Mr. Don Mackenzie, asked me to hold on for a while, and that is in 2012. And from 2012 until 2025, I had been holding on, both as school principal and as counselor. Now, I used that as an opportunity because I was carrying both hats at the same salary. So I don't want people to feel like, oh, it meant more salary for him. And so there was nothing, same salary as a counselor I received. I used the opportunity to get from the outside teachers, Imani teachers. Prior to that, Ms. Antoine had made many efforts. Ms. Harley, they've never had any teachers from outside, always inmates. So we had a situation of both inmates and teachers from outside teaching. And as a result, I was able to set up what is now known as the Rehabilitation Unit. So it was a blessing in disguise that I was carrying both hats, right? And then we got the support of a social worker, Mr. Christopher Stroud. He came on board. So we were able to function as a unit, and so, but with great difficulty, tremendous difficulty in terms of staffing and the competence, meaning the areas of competence of the staffing, as well as space. You know, I said recently to the present commissioner, I said, Commissioner, if 100 inmates just decide one morning they want to join the education program and they're committed to it, we're in trouble. Because where would we hold those classes? Those are challenges, and they have been made known far and wide that we face with those challenges. And so and we have been doing what I call, the last time I said to a meeting, we've been doing what I refer to as a holding operation. Conducting programs in education, in counseling, social work, religious activities, religious/spiritual if you want, if people prefer that, sports and culture, community and school outreach programs. But it has been ad hoc because of staffing problem. Obviously to my dissatisfaction, because I come from an experience where things used to be much more organized than that. But we have been doing it. There have been some successes, as we have pointed out, and it has been a holding operation in this sense that it created an environment in the prison that would discourage inmates from breaking out of prison. I think sometimes people do not appreciate that. Sometimes they charge us of making the prison into a hotel or this or so. I've heard a lot of remarks about that. I think it is a lack of understanding of people. I understand why they're saying that, because they feel if people hurt society, you should hurt them back. That's the way we normally think. But sociological studies have shown if you make prison life too hard and onerous and brutal for inmates, you're preparing them to come outside to take revenge on society. And I have examples of that having happened. There was one young man, he was beaten on the day of his release. Court mandated strokes, but it was given on the day of his release. And he vowed that somebody's going to pay for that the day he was leaving, with all his body beaten up and so on. Court mandated, yes. And in a couple of weeks, he committed a heinous crime and came back. He's still in prison now for that. But I'm trying to put in context what we are trying to do, the challenges we are faced with, so that people can understand that we are not sleeping on the job. We are working even more than probably the normal work should require. But we are faced with serious limitation of staffing, space, and other things, so as to reach a wider number of guys. I like to use a biblical term, if you would permit me, Dr.
Of course, absolutely.
New wine for new caskins. Rehabilitation is really, as Mr. Sylvester said, it's a new experience in the prison. As I said, it was started by us inmates. It was new. The prison historically has been a guard system. Guys commit crime, they're sent to court, and the role of the prison staff there, prison officers, is to ensure that they don't escape. Some of them do some work in agriculture or this or so, but most of them were locked in their cell, kept safely. When Mr. Courtney came and we were there, he opened up the system because we were doing some rehabilitation, but you had 17 men who had a certain level of development, which you don't have now. The release of the 17, as good as it was for me, it created a vacuum in the prison that has not been filled. Attempts have been made. I have created what was called the Big Brother support system, where I try to imitate the a structure that would be like the 17, with some of the what I would consider senior or more mature inmates there that had all kind of difficulties, and so because they're not at the same level and so on, right? So those are the challenges. New wine for new casket. What is a new casket? We have to move to sentence management. So I'll come back to answering your question. Sentence management is important. When guys come in, they must be interviewed consciously, to be slotted consciously into various programs. For the time being, up to now, it is more or less voluntary. And that's the challenge and the problem there.
So it's sort of open-ended, if you will, in a way. Like there is no structure. I mean, clearly, based on what you just articulated here, that structure is not properly defined.
There is a structure, but I would tell you, it is very wobbly, and is not enforced as it should be. Take, for example, the young man. I think I can say that without prejudice.
Yeah. Prejudice in the yes.
The young man that is I'll use the word alleged.
Richards, alleged. Yes.
Right. Okay, right. Take, for example, in his case, right? As far as the prison and his life in the prison was concerned, he didn't give trouble. I wouldn't say he was an exemplary inmate, right? But basically, he was an inmate that didn't give trouble, and so he was moving around doing little odd jobs and that kind of thing. So he's not additional stress and problems to the staff. But that is the danger. It means now inmates like that, and there are lots of inmates operating like that in the prison. It means inmates like that can go into the prison, spend their time in the prison, working in the bakery, working here, doing that and so on, without being impacted in a conscious, targeted way by rehabilitation programs aimed at changing the mindset and preparing them for outside. And that's the problem there. That's the problem there. In other words, when he left, he was a good boy inside. But he's gone out, and by all reports, in fact, I've met with him already as counselor, and so, and like I think I heard his lawyer say, he is stating he has no memory of some of the things that he's been accused of. I am not there to judge, but I'm saying that there are many inmates. I'm not saying others may come out and do that, but many inmates who are functioning normally in there. But because we do not have a system of sentence management, they can go in and come out untouched.
Mr. Cornwall, you've articulated so many things here for us to ponder on, but I do want to hone in on, and you said it at the start. I do want to hone in on sort of the counseling that happens there, because is it? I mean, and I'm looking at the Prison Act in front of me now, and the Prison Act does speak to having sort of a board in place. I believe that's what it's called. I'm going to get the specific section, but I referenced it 2 programs ago, for again doing proper assessment of inmates before they are released, right? So, for example, we know that in the context of, and maybe Mr. Sylvester can help me with this, I'm not sure, but in the context of sentencing, that you can get, for example, sort of a reduced sentence. So let's say you were there for 8 months for one thing, and then based on your behavior, one can reduce that sentencing. What role does counseling play in that? And in the absence of the board who has to determine the release of inmates, I understand that board has to be constituted by the Ministry of National Security, appointed by the Ministry of National Security, I suspect the Prime Minister here. In the face of that gap, isn't that a problem in respect of determining release, early release, or whether someone should serve out the full course of their sentence if you're the only person making that determination?
No. Let's be very clear on that, because next thing people might want to meet me in the street and think I don't
No,
determine the release of anyone,
right. But
let me
the
explain the
point is,
system.
I want to understand. Yes, please explain it.
Yes, let me explain the system. Look, the court sentence a person.
Yes.
John Smith. Sentence John Smith a certain period of time. The convention is that remission. John Smith would receive remission. So, like, let's for example, the classical cases, he's given 3 years by the court. Remission, when applied, he would in fact spend 2 years, calendar years, right? It has nothing to do with his doing this or that. Also, that's the system. People like to put it, a prison year is 8 months, that kind of thing. And that is something, I don't know whether it's established in law. Probably it is, or probably it's just convention that is so, but that is the situation there. It has nothing to do with the board. It has absolutely nothing to do with the board. It has nothing to do with me and counsel or anything like that, right? So, like in the case of the same Kid Richards, again, his sentence was a set of concurrent sentences. Concurrent mean that they're happening together. So a guy could get 10 years concurrently. It amounts to him doing 10 years and not 30 years. If you add up 10 years, it's on 30 years. But if the court says it's concurrent, then it's 10 years. If the court says it is consecutive, then it's 30. Or the court may say, well, on count 1 and 2, that's concurrent, but on this and the other one is consecutive, it would end up being 20. Right? And this is calculated by the reception. It has nothing to do with the rehabilitation unit at all. In fact, many times, let's be very clear on that, many times, if the reception makes an error, it tends to be an error in the direction of keeping guys longer in prison than they should.
As opposed to getting a shorter sentence.
As opposed to getting a shorter sentence. Sometimes, many times they come to me, a guy say, Mr. Bogo, I want to see you. Most of the time I don't want to see me, it's not counsel they want. They want me to come and help them address the question of the sentence. It has not been calculated properly. And so in many cases, they are wrong. But there have been some cases. Once I went actually to the magistrate court on something, and the reception had misunderstood the warrant and was giving the guy many, many years more than he should have. So the reception doesn't err on the side of releasing a guy earlier than he should. So in terms of the board of review, as it is called, this is not a favor. It is something in the prison rules, right? Board of review. And it is for guys now serving sentence 4 years or more, in which they have to be reviewed. And what would be taken into consideration? Their conduct, their industry, their involvement in this, and so all of that would be taken into consideration. And that board would get the names of those guys, look at the files so as to see how they conducted themselves, whether, because on the files it could be charges for this and that, and so all that will be taken into consideration by the board, as well as taken into consideration what the community would say in relation to the person, and also whether the person has a place to go, whether the family would be willing to receive them. And it is on that basis the board can make a recommendation to the Minister of National Security for the release of that person. I'm saying that has not happened in years. That has not happened in years. That's the reality. So it is not a case of where there was any early release and so. But it's not a favor. It's in the rules.
Yeah, but Mr. Cornwall, here's my question. With respect to the board of review, is the determination made based on reports that the counselor or anyone in the prison has to submit to them?
Yes,
and do they make that independent of consulting with you all?
No. What happens?
Yes.
What happens, sir, is that I have undertaken, right, in the past, when the board were functioning, to meet with the inmates who should come up for review, right, and work with them as best as I can as loan counselor and head of rehabilitation, overlooking education and all of those things, and make a write-up on the particular inmates, right, which would go to the board without any specific recommendation from it in terms of this person should be released or that person should be. I give the facts.
Thanks for that. Thank you. And I think that clarification is crucial.
And the board now would look at that. This is helpful to the board because most times the file that they would get from the reception, they would still get the file from the reception. Most times the file from the reception does not have that kind of information as I would give in a separate report. And it is on that basis, the board is so constituted, there's a psychologist on board, there's somebody from the church on board, and different social worker and so on. They would make a determination whether that person should be recommended or should not be recommended. That's it. That's the process.
Is there a mental health
as well as guys on? It's not intermediate. It really should be indeterminate. Guys on lifetime sentences, they can probably get released through that process. But a long time that has really not happened for whatever reason. I don't know. I do not determine those things.
Right. But I think that clarification is extremely crucial because absolutely. I think that is absolutely crucial.
Yes.
But there is another addendum to this question, sir, and that has to do with having a psychiatrist. Is there a psychiatrist? You mentioned the counselor, the psychologist. Is there a psychiatrist there? Is there somebody making a mental health assessment of the inmates there as well?
Right. The Monge Hospital, they do visit from time to time, or an inmate can be recommended to them outside of the normal visit to make those determination and so on. In fact, at present, there are 40 inmates who have been so assessed by Monge and are on medication, either tablets or injection. There are 40 of them. And just let me say up front here, I think I should say that the prison has holds the view, and not just the present commissioner, but other commissioners before that have held the view that inmates like that, like those, human beings, yes, I'm not in any way casting any aspersion, but such human beings with these mental health problems should be held in a separate facility from the prison and a separate facility from Monge, because it is a situation where the person would have committed an offense, a criminal offense, but also has a mental problem that requires that kind of intervention. It's unfair to the prison officers to be dealing with such persons, and it would be unfair to the staff at Monge to be dealing with such persons. It should be persons trained in such a way as if they're now combining the skill, knowledge, and so on, and competence of both prison officer as well as the health thing, a separate facility. But again, I guess over the years it has been challenges to the existing government, because it has been for years. So it's not talking about one government or the other.
This has been there. This has been, and it's something I was really surprised that it was the Grenada 17 who actually initiated this rehabilitation program, and but the legislation speaks to that. The Prison Act speaks to that. It was just never implemented by anybody, right?
Dr. Bob, could I suggest to you?
Absolutely, really sir.
So, if you to really take sentence management seriously and rehabilitation seriously, so as to minimize the possibility of what happened and this family is suffering so much, the government needs to be able to provide a staffing in rehabilitation of about 25 persons of different competencies. Look, it's just last year we got a school principal. Very wonderful young lady, and she's doing good work, but with a lot of difficulties that could cause anybody looking narrowly, could cause them to say, well, she has not been effective because she's into all kinds of things. And she said to me, she is part of the rehabilitation unit, so I am her immediate supervisor as such, right? And she said to me, Mr. Cornwall, we need a total about 13 persons to get the education program. Education will be both academic as well as skill training, to get it seriously. And she gave me a list. I don't want to bore people with that, 13 persons. And our strategy being considered at the level of the executive. This is why I say we're now really seeking to tackle this thing in a systematic way. Our strategy is to establish the education program as a school, and in fact name it after, we have to get the approval, we name it after Mr. Winston Courtney, under whom this whole rehabilitation thing started together with the 17, Winston Courtney Learning Center. Get it registered at school so that we can get the benefits from the Ministry of Education as other schools and so. Because we need a staff about 13 persons, not necessarily 13 persons sitting down in the prison. There could be visiting persons. They come in to do the program and go, but we need 13 persons. And that's just only for the education. The counseling, let me tell you something about the counseling. The court has mandated, so the court expects us to carry this out. We have been in violation because you have one counselor trying to do everything. The court has mandated 113 inmates presently right now in the prison, sitting down in the prison there now, to be counseled. 45 of those inmates have been sentenced for some form of homicide, that is, having killed people. capital, non-capital, manslaughter, and so
manslaughter,
45, right. 34 sexual offenses. So that's 79 already. 13 violent offenses outside of homicide, harm, grievous harm, maim, and that kind of thing. 13 stealing, robbery, and that kind of thing. And 4 arson. 113 persons. So we need to find counselors. We have a strategy that we are discussing of seeking from the government a counselor through education, a counselor through national security, as well as, that is full-time I'm talking about there now, as well as a counselor for prison officers, because they're in a very stressful environment, and many times we don't think of the prison officers having to face all of these kind of things. Many of them require counseling support, working in that situation. They too are locked in the prison. The only thing is they can go home and come back, but they too are locked in the prison. As well as to seek assistance, voluntary assistance from other areas, the churches, this, and so on and so on, so that we can really seek to address a number of these issues.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Even if we were to get the 3 full-time counselors, it still wouldn't be adequate. It would make a big difference from what now exists, but it still would not be adequate. So that when we talk about the problem, and it's going to affect our country. God forbid that our country becomes like some of our neighboring countries. So that there must be investment in the area of the prison and the prison work. Even more so before building a new prison. And I'm for building a new prison. I have visited the prison in St. Vincent, the new one, and the prison in St. Lucia. And how it is structured, it makes it more effective to maintain security. What we have in Richmond Hill is really not a prison. It was not built as a prison. It's being used as a prison. And we're trying our best how to keep one set of guys from linking with other guys. And so it's a lot of difficulties these prison officers are faced with. Lots of difficulties.
Yeah. Let me bring back Mr. Sylvester here. And speaking of difficulties, Mr. Sylvester, and then we do have to get to the next segment. But Mr. Sylvester, in respect of the current prison population, you referenced the numbers earlier in the segment. But let us talk about the ratio of course, males to females, or, the age group of the prisoners there. Of course, we know that the male to female ratio is skewed heavily male against female. But let us talk about the age group of the prison population. And is it a case at the prison where population management has become an issue, or has it always been an issue, sir?
In terms of,
I guess, space.
Yes,
spacing and how you manage that process.
Yeah, so the female,
and I know, and also you have the remand block, I understand, which is separate from the regular prison. Yes,
the female prison is separate. So they're pretty well off in terms of spacing. But in the male prison, what people have to understand is we only have one prison. We hold everybody. In other Caribbean islands, for instance, they have remand prisons for remand prisoners, and they have detention facilities for prohibited immigrants and so on. Everybody in our prison has to be kept in that one prison. So it is a challenge to keep those persons separate. And for spacing, as Mr. Cornwall was speaking about having the classes and so forth, the prison already has an issue of spacing to house the inmates. So other aspects of managing the prison will be affected by by spacing. I was listening to Mr. Cornwall. Let me clarify the matter of remission.
Yes, sir.
Because
please.
I
Yes.
worked in the prison reception for a number of years, and I still do oversight of that department. Remission is in the Prison Act. It is granted under the Prison Act. So the 1/3 of the prisoner's sentence is given upfront according to the Prison Act. So it's not something that we as the officers have control over. That is what the law states, and that is how the calculation is done. So we don't really have a say as to how much remission an inmate individual get. That's under the law, 1/3 of every sentence. What the law states, however, if the person has any infractions against the prison rules, what the remission that is taken, it can be added back. And even then, we just can't add it back to the sentence. It has procedures and so forth to be followed. There is a process of an internal tribunal to hear, and even then, we can add back 90 days, more than 90 days at one time. So that is just to clarify the issue of remission.
Yes, very important, Mr. Sylvester, and I'm glad you referenced. I'm glad you referenced, because I'm actually looking at the legislation here. So for Grenadians, don't be going around cussing the councillors and whoever else. It's in law. If you have a problem with it, petition your government to update the legislation laws, right? Yeah. And so this is such a teachable moment for me, gentlemen. You have taught me so much today in respect of understanding remission here. And I'm looking at it, the 1/3 thing, it's there in the legislation. And perhaps maybe that's something that needs to change. But Mr. Cornwall, I see you smiling here. I suspect you want to add something.
Well, I want to thank Mr. Sylvester for clarifying that, because the truth of the matter is that I get so down into running around with the guys about the Congress and that social work and so I didn't know that. So I want to thank him. It's in the law.
Yeah.
It's in the law.
Yeah. It's in the law, absolutely. And
if you permit me,
yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
Permit me, sir. If you'd permit me, I would just like to say, because as a result, out of the anger of people, they would say, okay, government, remove that. I would like, if it should be so presumptuous to say, I would like to say, maybe it could be tweaked in terms of keeping it, because it has a rehabilitative aspect to it. People operate on reward and punishment. That's the system they build in our heads, right?
Carrot and a stick.
Where a guy knows, if he knows that he can show change and so on, he can get that, it makes it more conducive in that direction. But if that were to be removed, you get 3 years, you're doing 3 years flat. It can backfire on us.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Sylvester. Yes, sir.
In the absence of a system of remission, that system that was left over from the colonial days, the British system. In the absence of that, remember, we must replace it with another system. The next system is the American system of parole. Parole requires a lot of resources, a lot of human resource, a lot of supervised released and supervising persons in the community, a proper counseling program, a proper rehabilitation program, even halfway houses, housing assistance and helping persons find job. What I'm saying is, yes, the system here might not be perfect now, but until we find a solution to properly manage, a modern solution this is what we have. It requires a lot of resources and alternative. And we have to ask the question, is the Grenadian society ready
to invest
in that kind of resources?
Yeah. And I just want to make one other point. I take strong exception. I don't care who it is, whether it's an NNP or NDC politician. My color is ice green and gold. But when politicians say, "Oh, we don't need more psychologists in the society," you've articulated a very strong case here that the prisons, our mental health system needs more psychologists and counselors. So I just had to say that. And finally, it irks me that the name of the prison is still His Majesty or Her Majesty or whichever interchangeable colonial head of state. And I'm proposing now, folks and viewers, please, I will start a petition that we rename the prison the Winston Courtney Prison. Okay? That's and I will start a change.org petition for that, because there is no need for no His Majesty anything or no Princess Alice or Princess Royal anything. I feel very strongly about that. Sorry, but His Majesty is not giving Grenada any resources to upkeep the prison and to speak to all of the challenges that we have at the prison. So it's our tax dollars that has to do that. So let's not call it His Majesty's prison anymore. But gentlemen, I want to go over to you, Mr. Cornwall, for some closing comments, and then over to Mr. Sylvester. Viewers, I do apologize. I know you have a lot of questions, but we have to get to the next segment. So, Mr. Cornwall, please, over to you, sir, for closing comments. And thank you again for agreeing to come on.
Right. Thank you very much. I think it's a discussion long overdue, right?
Yes.
In fact, I would like to say that, and it's not first time I'm saying that, there's need for a national discussion on the question of crime and young people in our country. We have the intellect in our country. Let's sit down. Let's discuss this thing. Let's come up with proposals that can now show a more systematic policy approach to the prison. Let's not leave it up to the commissioner, because commissioners come and go, and each one that come, they come with a different view and that kind of thing. Since I've been working in the prison, I've worked under 7 commissioners in 16 years. 7, you know. I mean, so that it's a lot of instability at the head, right? So we need to have a national conversation on this whole matter. And finally, one of the things that we are discussing at the executive level of the prison is that of having meetings with what we call stakeholders of rehabilitation. And just let me point out those whom we consider to be stakeholders of rehabilitation. The churches, and we would want to suggest to the churches, not that they change their way of coming and say, give your heart to Christ and go up and so, but we think that that is not an effective method in the prison at this time. We really need the churches to assist us with what is called pastoral counseling.
Let's take a pin there, Mr. Cornell, and I hope this does not come across the wrong way for anyone of faith. But do pastors...
I'm a man of faith.
I know you're a man of faith, and that's why I'm being very intentional.
Yes, sure.
What
I won't take offense.
You and I have gotten into debates about faith before, but
yes, I do want to put your program on that too. Go ahead, sir. Sorry, sir.
Is there proselytizing that happens at the prison? In other words, the carrot and stick of, well, if you get saved, you know, when you get out of prison, then you have to come to our church. Does that happen?
Not in that direct way. But the churches in Grenada have a certain understanding of what their work is, whether it's in the prison, whether it's outside or not. Namely, you preach what they consider to be the gospel, and they ask people to make a commitment. And they do the same thing in the prison. I'm not knocking that, but I'm saying we have to go beyond that to what I call pastoral. Come and sit with the guys, man. Come and
Right.
sit with them,
Uh-huh.
walk with them,
Uh-huh.
and so on. That is one area probably we'd want to suggest. I know, for
Okay.
example, Pastor Jude Hector is very strong on that too. We are in the same place on that. Because recently we had a whole discussion because we consider the whole idea of a halfway house, and he's on board on that. That's going to take some time. The second
yes, sir. Go ahead.
stakeholder would be the business community. We want to meet with the business community, and they can immediately see their interest involved. If crime get away in Grenada, it's problem for the business community. So how can they come on board? Just let me step back and say, when Mr. Don Mackenzie was commissioner, he and I worked very closely, very, very closely. Probably that's the commissioner I work with the closest. And we had that initiative with the business community. And 50-something business persons, including big business, the big businesses in Grenada, came up and he took them down into the prison. The only place he didn't bring them was in the armory. They saw the conditions under which prisoners were living. Some of them were shocked to know that people living under those conditions because we are overcrowded. And as a result, some of the business people came on board in assisting us with rehabilitation and so. But they have their own challenges economically and so. But we want to renew that kind of work with them. The third would be the legal and judicial system, the Bar Association, the lawyers. Share your thoughts and ideas of how things can be done. The magistracy and the High Court, we want to meet with them. Under Mr. Mackenzie, we had a meeting with the magistrates on that. Then I think Mr. Mara Gill was chief magistrate at that time. And then the final major area of stakeholders would be family and friends of the inmates. We want to adapt and tweak to our purposes. It will take a lot of work. That's why we need the staffing. What would be like like how the schools have a PTA, where parents are met once a quarter or whatever it is. They get a report on their children, and there's discussion of how the parents can positively impact their children. We want to do that with the families and friends of inmates, because in some cases, some family members, sorry for saying so, but some family members do play a negative role in the lives of the inmates they have up there. We want to see how we can get them on board as stakeholders in that process, so that we're really trying to put the new wine in new caskets, because the old way of doing prison cannot bring about the change that we want.
That you need.
Sentence management is a way going forward, and that is a new approach that will require new thinking. Mr. Sylvester would have to train his officers to appreciate that too, because that's unfair. It has been rehabilitation has been unfair to the officers. I like to be balanced with people, because officers in the past, now some changes are being made, but in the past, officers were there trained to open, close door, this, that. That's what a no jail to be. And now Cornwall of them come saying education and this and that. And there was one officer, he's now out of the system, who used to be saying, Cornwall, the men come in jail. What all this thing for? So that it's unfair to them, because they do not understand how you bring about the change in the life of a person. So that the whole training program for officers, which has begun, right, has to be intensified to prepare the officers so that they themselves could be part of that whole thrust. So it's a major undertaking that is being considered. The staffing will be required for that to think. Otherwise, it would just be a nice talk by Cornwall and Sylvester this morning if we do not have that. We really, really want, and we want the understanding of the public too. We want, because it has to do with them. If guys are going to come out, we can't keep them in jail forever. Even if we give them 20 years, they're going to come out. How are they coming out? Are they coming out better, or are they coming out worse? It's going to affect anybody, including those of us who work in the prison. So we have an interest to support what is being done there. We would undertake to be responsible in our work, so that we can do our best to bring about the necessary changes. Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Sylvester, sir, over to you for some closing comments. And thank you again for appearing on the program this week.
Yes, thanks for having us. I'm happy to see the conversation has actually started. We needed this to happen, the conversation to happen, because as a lone prison in the country, most times, as we're often said, and the recent comments by the Prime Minister, we've been treated as stepchildren in terms of priority in the nation. However, besides everything, we still have one of the safest prisons in the Caribbean, besides the lack of resources and lack of some important programs. However, the prison can't do it alone. It's impossible. It takes everybody's approach, the whole of society's approach. Mr. Cornwall said the church should play. I believe the church is one of the members of society who have played one of the biggest role in rehabilitating persons in prison. They might have saved more souls than any program the prison has done in the past. So we need more hands-on assistance from society to make a difference. Yes.
Gentlemen, thank you. And our commitment here again is not sensationalism. We felt and not reactionary either. Again, we have had conversations here on mental health before. We have highlighted a lot of the mental health issues at the Mungay Hospital, for example. We have highlighted gender-based violence. So we are not doing that for clout or for clicks or anything like that. But gentlemen, our commitment here is that we will be in touch with you all, and we will continue to have conversations. In fact, perhaps hear from some ex-inmates as well, and the work that they're doing to impact positively a change in their own communities. I think those are important stories that must be highlighted as well. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for appearing on the program this week.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for
Yes.
having me.
Yes, absolutely.
Next time we talk, would be a different hat.
Well, what is that? Your
Is that
your pastoral hat? We will talk about that offline. I know. Yes, yeah. Absolutely. All right, viewers and listeners, that was, of course, Mr. Leon Cornwall, the head of counseling at the Richmond Hill Prison, shall we say the Winston Courtney Correctional Facility, as well as Mr. Evelyn Sylvester, who is the head of training at that correctional facility up there. Again, I'm decolonizing. It's time to decolonize these things that exist in our society. Again, King Charles does not even know where Richmond Hill Prison is located. So folks, what we want to do now is to take a quick break, and we will come back for our segment on International Women's Day. Please stand by for that. Listeners, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. Of course, we know that today is observed and celebrated as International Women's Day. And of course, as we normally do here on the Bubb Report, this is not new, and this is not on the backdrop of the sad and tragic stories involving gender-based violence recently. We have continued to have conversations here doing public awareness on the state of women. Now, 3 decades after the Beijing Platform for Action, progress towards gender equality remains uneven and fragile. Sustainable Development Goal 5 of the United Nations commits the international community to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls by 2030. Yet, current trajectories show that progress remains far too slow. According to UN Women, at the present pace, it could take more than a century to close the global gender gap. This projection is not inevitable. With determined political action, sustained investment, and institutional reform, progress can in fact accelerate. Even if this target is not fully achieved by 2030, the commitments to equality must not weaken. In many contexts, rights once considered secure are under pressure and being attacked by coalitions, of extreme right-wing movements, right-wing religious movements, religious fundamentalists, autocrats, and concentrated economic power. In other cases, structural exclusion from political power, justice systems, and economic inopportunity persists. Across regions, including in the Middle East and North Africa and other fragile and conflict-affected regions, women and girls continue to face severe risks linked to violence, displacement, and political repression. In the context of Grenada, gender-based violence, overall, the data paints a picture in which women and girls are at risk of physical and sexual violence in Grenada from both their intimate partners, friends, acquaintances, and members of their own family. This confirms what is known about violence against women globally is also true for Grenada. The main threat to women and girls is not from strangers, but from people with whom they have intimate or non-intimate and familial relationships. The National Domestic Violence and Sex Abuse Protocol for Grenada identifies intimate partner violence and sexual violence as the most prevalent forms of violence against women in the country. Now, notwithstanding Grenada's many efforts to combat GBV and improve the personal security of women and girls, a number of systemic and ideological challenges in addressing GBV continue to remain an issue. Of course, despite all of these challenges, we do have to appreciate and celebrate the work that our women have been doing to uplift not only Grenadian society, but global society. After all, the hands that rock the cradle should be ruling the world. And at this time, we wish to welcome our panelists for this week's edition of the program. We have a lady, Anande Trotman Joseph, who is the Public Relations Officer of the Grenada National Organization of Women. Lady Joseph is also a well-respected attorney at law and also sat on Grenada's Integrity Commission. We have returning to this week's edition of the program, Alyssa Batiste. Alyssa, welcome back to the program. Your internet seems to be doing much better this time around, so we're happy about that. And we have Zinzi Noel. Zinzi Noel, another young woman. Zinzi, if you can turn your camera on, who is also joining us for this week's conversation. So, ladies, first and foremost, happy International Women's Day. We salute you here on the program.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you very much, Kellon.
Yes, absolutely. So, Lady Joseph, I do want to begin with you and reflect on where we are, International Women's Day 2026, the state of women. You know, it's macro and micro, but I do want to begin at the micro level in our context in respect of what we have control over in Grenada.
Well, put that way, micro, we have control over who we are, what we do, what we support. And this morning, I've heard your previous panelist on your program for the morning. And just a reminder to all of us that we are all stakeholders. So individually, we are stakeholders. And this morning, I'm actually here representing the Grenada National Organization for Women. So that is micro because we have to do the work. Our members and our affiliate members, and I take this opportunity this morning through your program to remind everyone within our organization and without our organization, outside of it, that it's easy to go and march and to hold vigils,
yes.
To have outrages and press releases. But on the micro level, what are we doing about the violence that we face? And I will just take the liberty just to share just a little bit more because, as you know, I have another engagement.
Yes.
And to say that GNOW has mainly been the main umbrella advocacy group around women's empowerment, and especially in terms of addressing one of the main problems faced by women and girls in Grenada, and that is violence against women. And that includes, of course, physical abuse. It looks at areas of intimate partner violence. And yes, we know the men are complaining, women, but the data shows that predominantly we women are affected by violence. So just wanted to open with that, Kellogg.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Of course, Zinzi, I'll go over to you. International Women's Day 2026 is happening against the backdrop of some severe headwinds for women in Grenada. But of course, one of the underlying calls to action in this period is for men to step forward as well and to be much more intentional allies. Not just as Lady Trotman Joseph say, Lady Trotman saying here is about, yes, the outrage and and the frustrating thing is, as Lady Joseph, you protest, but are you in the space doing the work, right? So that is where I want to begin on that. Zinzi, so if you just unmute and we'll get you going there. Zinzi, yes, are you able to hear us, Zinzi? Oh yeah, yes, go ahead. Yes.
Yes, I am. I'm hearing you.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you for that. I think that right now what we're seeing in Grenada is that many women are feeling frustrated, but this cause is not a women only cause. This cause is a community wide, national wide, regional wide, international wide cause. And so it is very important to have men on board to support this cause and not just women fighting amongst ourselves. It takes a community to make change and to bring about the impact that we need. International Women's Day this year reminds us that addressing these issues cannot be the responsibility of the woman alone. Men must be international allies as well. That means not only speaking, but also challenging harmful attitudes among their peers, supporting policies that protect women as well, and participating in the work that we're building for our safer communities.
Absolutely, and I know that Alyssa, you and a group of young people in Grenada, you've come together in recent times to form an organization. It's called the Grenada Youth Against Sexual and Gender-Based Violence. That's if I get the titling correct. Let us talk about why you got involved. A lot of the issues that you've raised obviously are so endemic in the society, but tell us why you've decided to take it to the next level.
Right. So good morning, all. First thing I would like to say is Happy International Women's Day to all the women listening to the program. This day is about us, right? I think that the main thing that caused us to form the group was the discussion we were having on the repeated incidents of violence against women in the nation, right? Because as young women growing up, it happens. Your neighbor does beat your wife, the boss man have a studio girlfriend, that these things are happening continuously, but we realize that it got to the point where someone died, right? And I don't think someone dying should have been the point where we started to push for change, but I think it was a big shock to everyone involved to realize, like, no, these violent things against women, they're creating a society where this could have happened, right? And if we do not push for a better society for women and everyone involved, then worse things could happen. Like, it could escalate, and it will escalate, right? So if we don't stand for change now, later down the line, positive things won't happen.
And I want to bring back Lady Joseph, because Lady Joseph, in a conversation with these young people here, of course, there was another young man that appeared on the program, Bevan McLean. I'm not sure if you saw that episode, Lady Joseph, but one of the things that they speak about are just those legislative loopholes, I suppose. Legislation that seems outdated, legislation that does not necessarily go far enough in protecting women and girls against these issues of gender-based violence. So in your experience and with GNOW, I know that you have put out a myriad of recommendations, whether it's by way of the Spotlight Initiative or whether it's by way of UN-based projects that happens from time to time. And you do the work of collecting the data, you do the work of making sense of the ground and what's happening on the ground. And so what I'm trying to get at, what advice would you have for these young women here and some young men who are also part of this fight now? What can they expect and what can they learn from GNOW?
Thank you very much for that. And let me just first say that I'm very heartened to see the next generation on board, because we in GNOW, we are supporting a lot of intergenerational work and capacity building at this time. And also, we believe in sustainable leadership. It is one thing to say that we're going to be transformational, we're going to change everything that there is, we're going to overturn the laws, we want new laws, but we also have to remember that we have to build sustainable leadership. And that is allyship between women who work towards women's empowerment, persons who work with child protection, and children's rights to expression and to thriving, because that is very important as well. So we're seeing youth, but the silent voice and the most vulnerable group in all of our discussions are the children's voices. And GNOW is a member of the Grenada National Coalition on the Rights of the Child. So let me share that. I also bring a hat because I am an attorney at law, first and foremost. That is my profession, my original calling, upon which platform I can be an advocate to do the work that I do. So we have heard that our next generation may feel that the work, the legal laws and our work may be inadequate, but I like to say this as somebody who has worked the ground. I don't just talk the talk like my colleagues from GNOW and the other civil society organizations, including the Grenada Bar Association. We walk the ground, we do a lot of pro bono work, whether it is legal, whether it is as a civil society group, whether it is advocacy, whether it's marching with groups, whether it's attending vigils, whether it is going into communities that sometimes are seen as hot spots for violence, where there's been femicide. We've only recently taken part in an area in St. David's, for example, where similarly someone had come out of jail and ended up going back to the spouse who he believed had put him there. And of course, that spouse was killed. So I am sharing that the laws are there. Yes, they have been used. They have been used to ensure that persons have been punished for their crimes. But of course, we're not saying that they cannot be changed. They can be changed. And they should be changed, responding to our next generations, responding to your advocacy. So I share this.
Yes, absolutely. And I do want to bring back Alyssa. I see Alyssa wanted to add. Did you want to add anything Lady Trotman Joseph just said here about the expectation and the work that you are now getting yourselves involved in?
Well, I would like to thank her for her, input and her advice. And I would love that in the future we work closer together to, especially help the people most vulnerable, especially the children, because they don't have voices, right? We acknowledge that children are the most vulnerable part in society because they don't really have the rights that we as adults have. They don't have it to the extent that we do. So I would love to work closer with you, and I hope that you would, reach out to us and allow us to contact you to make Grenada a better place for everyone.
Indeed. We need you. We need the youth on board with your energy, with your fresh views, seeing things from a different angle, bringing different skill sets. You are more of a digital era and very much, of course, proficient in making TikToks, documentaries, and all of that. And we really would like to welcome your organization on board with GNOW or to GNOW. We know that you have male allies and we welcome allyship because, as you rightly said before, yes, we women make up half of the entire population, and sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, but we are half of everyone. but we cannot do it alone. And we look at our prisons who are there in the largest of numbers for doing things that hurt the women and girls of Grenada. Let's
Lady
think about
Trotman,
that.
yes, Lady Trotman, I'm going to give you a chance for closing comments because I know that you have another event to get to. If you want to do that now, or if you still have some time for us, we can also indulge with that. Lady Trotman, did you hear me?
Dr. Bubb, I seem to be having a little bit of a problem hearing you. I'm not sure if it is at
Yeah.
your end or my end.
Are you guys hearing me? Yeah, it's probably on your end.
So maybe I can
Yeah,
get
it's
some technical help.
Yeah,
somewhere.
it's probably on your end. So hold on there. Folks, but of course, while we sort out Ms. Trotman Joseph's audio issue there, I know that last week some of you were part of delivering a petition to the office of the Prime Minister, and that was on the news. So Zinzi, I know that you're part of the group and the organization. So talk to us about the petition that you delivered and the reasoning behind it. Yes.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Yes, so the petition is really us compiling a bunch of, I would say, initiatives, policies that we think needs to be adopted. Because when we took a look at the laws that we have, we realized that a lot of the stuff that we have are outdated and needs to be updated, and also that there needs to be an education drive when it comes to gender-based violence and the whole concept of knowing what is consent and all those different aspects. And so we took the initiative as a group to really look into the laws and see what needs to be changed, what needs to be amended, and what programs and initiatives that we can recommend. So we're not just pointing out problems, but also trying to come up with solutions. And so the document is basically stating all of the things that we have noticed and things that we hope that the ministry and the prime minister would take serious, and stuff that we think that needs to be changed. So yeah.
Absolutely. And of course, Alyssa, talk about, can you get into some of the specific recommendations? And I'm not too sure if Lady Trotman, can you hear me again now?
Yes, I can. And thank you very much.
Okay, very well. Yes, absolutely. Alyssa, can you go into some of the key recommendations that you've advanced to the office of the Prime Minister that perhaps, and of course, I'll get Lady Trotman later on. I was going to give you an opportunity for closing comments, but following Alyssa's intervention, I would give you an opportunity for some closing comments. But Alyssa, what are some of those specific recommendations?
Right. So we have many specific recommendations that we have included. And I just want to give you like just a few of them. Right. We have asked for, some public education on things like consent, respect, appropriate conduct, and just, informing the younger people of what they should expect when in relationships, how to avoid being groomed, like how to point out no, this situation is not okay to be in. We also have asked for things like survivor-centered justice, right? We want that when someone has experienced some form of violence or abuse, that the justice is focused on helping them be better, right? We want to make sure that their mental health and their emotional health is prioritized, because it wouldn't be conducive if we say we want, an improvement, and then these people end up in situations where they are face to face with their abuser, and it feels very daunting. So we're asking for virtual meetings, especially if it's a child, to meet with the adult perpetrator of whatever crime it may be. We have asked that the correctional system, that the public is a little more well informed on how we go about like as in the previous section, just giving us a little more information on how this goes about the release, to make sure that we are aware of the processes so we can't come to incorrect judgments, but we also hope that the people being released will be getting some sort of psychological assessment before the release. And if they're dangerous or have committed dangerous crimes, that the public is informed beforehand so we can be a little more wary and more aware, right? Among other things, we asked for the revision of the legal definition of rape to be more consent-based instead of just being the violence that we usually see. We want it to be based on consent so that, just in case, because not all assaults happen in a way that would be like people do get assaulted, but we want it to be based on consent. So when we go bring it forth, the consensual aspect is prioritized, right? Because there's no area for what ifs and but what were you wearing, these that. No, if I did not consent, then I have been assaulted. It cannot be spun and tried to make it seem like something it isn't. We also ask that people suspended disbelief that, oh, well, maybe you did consent. Consent can be freely given and freely revoked at any point. So we want people to acknowledge that. We're also asking that a sex offenders registry be publicly available for the general public to be aware, right? Because we have heard rumors of it existing or it not existing, but we would like that the public be aware that we would be given the information so that if someone is convicted for sexual assault, rape, any type of violence really, that the public could be notified right through the registry that is publicly available, so I don't have to wonder. I can go and see, okay, this is the case, right? We're asking for specific protections for people with disabilities, right? Because we have a lot of instances globally where people with disabilities are taken advantage of by their caretakers, the people around them. So we want to ensure that people with disabilities are also fairly represented in our movement. We're also asking that the outdated terms used to refer to these people is removed, like imbecile and these things. Like we want to move these out because we don't use these terms anymore. We have grown as a society and as a country and as people to remove derogatory terms from describing people with disabilities. They just are human beings who have disabilities, right? So we want these things to remove. We are asking that marital rape be treated just as severely as any other form of rape, because we find that when you're married and your partner assaults you, it doesn't get treated with the same amount of severity. So we ask that be treated to the highest degree, that the degree that it would happen if I was not married to this person, right? We ask for protective measures for women so that women can carry things like pepper spray, mace, even a taser, because it's scary out here for women to, if you're walking the road at night, that you don't know if anything could happen. And these things being illegal is a little more hard for the women to swallow, right? Because it's like, if I get it, it's no, I'm in trouble, because if I do mace the person, it's illegal. I could also get charged, even though the person tried to assault me, right? So we always have to, look at these things. We're asking for Grenada to be a little more thorough with their investigations and the evidence handling, and we're hoping that our capabilities for forensic analytics be reviewed and maybe expedited. Maybe we could have a discussion with the countries there to us so that the evidence that we're sending to be analyzed comes back quicker, so the cases can be pushed forward faster. They can go through the system and take less time than you're waiting years for a court hearing or a verdict. The evidence based, if it's DNA, might have already deteriorated and would no longer be useful, right? So that's the main gist of most of the things we're asking. We're asking that all Grenadians join us, because this isn't only for the young people. This is for the elderly persons who can't advocate for themselves, the children who can't advocate for themselves. So we're asking for all Grenadians to come together to help us with this initiative, and in pressuring our government to take us seriously, because we cannot do it alone. We're just a few very young people. Most of us are in university and college and stuff. So where there's only so many of us. We need the help of the general.
And Lady Joseph, you've heard the passion here. And as we go over to you for some closing comments, I do want you to get to react to some of the recommendations that the young people have advanced. As they articulated, they have said that, that they've examined some of the legislation that currently exists. They said they've sought advice from more seasoned people. I know that they did reach out to, for example, Miss Elaine Henry McQueen, Mrs. McQueen, and speaking with her as well, and some other folks. But I want you to react to some of the recommendations, advice, and then closing comments in that order.
Okay, so I'm hearing the recommendations, and I want to share with you my younger sister, but more passionate sister at this time, because we hear and see and feel that passion, and it's really very encouraging. So what I would tell you basically, and I'm speaking here wearing my legal or woman lawyer's hat, is that sometimes we don't have to reinvent the wheel. All of this would have, or a lot of this, because human behavior remains human behavior. It's about power and control. It's about people taking advantage of others for enjoyment. We see a lot globally about pedophilia, and I think this is the ugliest side of what is being experienced in the world. And it's not just in the world, it happens right here. I have been the chairperson of GNCRC, and I've lived and learned and heard, and people have shared their experiences of some very ugly, ugly things that happen right here in Grenada. And at times I was on the headline news speaking about things that I never dreamt when I was young that I could have been speaking about. So I share all of this to say that I believe, as a social justice, a social rights advocate who is a lawyer, that advocacy, the fight, the war against violence in all of its forms, especially violence against women and girls, is a continuous fight that requires continuous advocacy by continuous advocates, which is why we believe in mentoring, reverse mentoring, and passing the baton. I am happy to see your passion this morning, because this baton that I have held, that I have received from persons who were advocates before me, who mentored me, and I tried to pay forward by, in turn, mentoring and continuing to speak. I can pass that baton to a new, passionate, and willing generation. And I think it is very timely that the theme for International Women's Day is Give to Gain. And I think this encapsulates everything that I am saying and that you are saying. Give to gain. We need more volunteers. We need more boots on the ground in the war against violence. Not just violence against women, but violence generally, because once there is violence in our society, in our norms, in our homes, in our learned behavior, starting with domestic violence, starting with the missed signs of children who might start off throwing tantrums and misbehaving. If we miss some of these signs right from the very beginning, then we end up living a nightmare in paradise.
Yes, absolutely, Lady Trotman. So if I may, Alyssa and Zinzi, if Zinzi's here, if Zinzi's hearing me, I would certainly like for you ladies to get in touch. If Miss Joseph, if that's something, Mrs. Joseph, that's something that you would be willing to accept. I don't think Mrs. Joseph can hear us, but Mrs. Joseph, can you hear us? No, I don't think she can hear us again. The internet connection is bad. But Zinzi, you've heard Lady Joseph here and the advice that she's giving. Any reaction to it?
I think that she definitely raised a very important point, and we I definitely see room for collaboration with her, because I think that our group needs persons with experience in the field to help us champion this cause. So most definitely, I think that she raised some valid points in that area.
I do want to get to Zinzi, and I want to stick with you, because I do know that you young people, you guys are very, your passion is something that deeply inspires me, because it reminded me of my passion when I was a student at the T.A. Marichaud Community College. In fact, I led some civil disobedience at the T.A. Marichaud Community College, so much so that the principal at the time called me out for planning a protest to embarrass him. I could never forget that. I was part of the student council there at the time. But the reason why I get the sense that your generation, you guys are not interested in just having the conversation and moving on, that you want to do more, right? So let's talk about that.
You are definitely correct in saying that, because over the past few years, we notice a trend where persons are just talking and there's no action after.
Yeah.
And I can see, as someone with a physical disability, I've seen it in my advocacy work, because I do advocate for persons with disabilities.
Disabilities, yes.
And I have made it my mission to try to shake things up and to try to see how we can implement more than have conversations, because there is a real need for change, and I think we need to move from just talking and move into action. And I think that we can move into action if a group of us, or the community, collaborate with us and make that change, or protest, whatever needs to be done to implement that change. We need to get on board with that. So that is one reason our organization worked on developing this document to bring forward this petition to try to see how we can start implementing that change, and so that we can do on the groundwork as well, so that we ensure that things are getting done. And we don't plan to just talk and just hand over this document to the prime minister and to the ministries and leave it there. No, we plan to follow up and ensure that things are getting done, and not just talk.
Follow up and not talk. And I just want to say, as a programming note, folks, we did invite the Minister of Social Development, Senator the Honorable Gloria Thomas, who we got an indication from the press secretary, and let me go ahead and read the message, that the Minister Thomas was confirmed to be here on the program. However, this morning, we got a message saying that Ms. Thomas, Senator the Honorable Thomas, on the last minute, indicated that she was not going to appear because she's traveling. I wish Senator the Honorable Gloria Thomas shared that with us before, as a courtesy, so that we would not have advertised her to be on the program this morning. I think it would have been courteous, at least, to inform the press secretary that you were not going to be appearing on the program. So I just had to say that. But Alyssa, let's get to you. What feedback have you been receiving concerning the petition that you've advanced? And I'm going to put up the QR code here with that, with the information on that petition. But what feedback have you been receiving so far where that is concerned?
So we have been receiving a lot of positive feedback from the people who are taking part. We have received so much positive feedback that we actually have started making changes. We've worked on getting some women out of abusive situations. I think this week we moved 2 women to safer places because of the outreach that the petition is making. So people are getting to know about us and on our work. We're getting a lot of support. Many people are joining us, talking to us, giving us advice, and we're working on having a fundraiser soon so we can raise the funds that we need to push our organization further. So I'm very grateful for the people who have reached us, signed the petition. We're getting enough signatures that I think very soon we will be able to make great changes in the country.
And I hear your passion, but of course your passion is grounded in a lot of these age-old gender stereotypes that exist in the society. A lot of these age-old tropes, we hear on International Women's Day today, celebrating women today in Grenada and around the world. But at the same time, you have these age-old tropes and stereotypes that are so entrenched. So my question is, how do you overcome those? I think that is probably one of the biggest challenges that you might confront in the society. Or have you already started to confront that?
The truth of the matter is that it has happened, right? Because we have our main, spokesperson is a man, right? So we have him as the face of the organization, and we find that as the women know, even though we are the people who are trying to get the change, he's a very useful person. We love our friend. He works very hard, but the truth of the matter is he gets better reception than we do. We understand the society that we live in. We understand the patriarchal society that we live under. We know that these things will happen.
And just to stick a pin, that is the QR code to your petition?
Yes, that is the QR code.
So quickly, before you continue, would you just want to explain to the viewers this petition, the QR code that we have here that they can scan?
Right. So the petition is to create signatures so that we can convince the people in government to take us seriously. Right. We're petitioning for as many signatures as possible so that when we hand over and we get responses from the ministers, that they can see that we have support from the public, so that they cannot just brush us aside and say, oh, it's just a group of 18 young people. We don't know. We have the petitions being signed by multiple Grenadians so that they can see, no, this is something that the country wants, so they are forced to take us more seriously when more people are backing us. So that is one of the main purposes of the petition.
Absolutely. So please continue. I didn't want to interrupt your train of thought. Yes.
No, it's okay. Right. So our main spokesperson is a man, and he gets better responses than we do because of the society we live under. Men generally get better responses, right? We live underneath a patriarchal society. They will take men more serious and hear them out more than they will women. So we generally use him to get our word across, especially to other men, right? Because women will listen to women, but sometimes you need a man so that other men will listen to you, right? So occasionally we'll get little comments like, we'll say the same thing. He'll say the exact words that the women of the group says, and he'll get better responses, right? People will say he's an intelligent young man, he's very smart, he works very hard, and we all work hard. And sometimes it's a little disheartening to see that the women's hard work in the group is being pushed onto his because, oh, he's a young man. It's so good to see a young man speaking about women's issues. But this is also men's issues, right? This isn't just about us as women. It's about us as a society. Because if we keep making it seem as if it's just a woman's issue, we will neglect the men who need the help. So I'm so glad that, he gets us where we need to go sometimes when we can't do it ourselves. But we do hope that eventually it won't be needed for him to say the exact same things we say every single day.
That's actually a very important point. And we do have a comment here from Kimberly Phillip. Kimberly is saying these young people are doing such important work, tangibly supporting survivors and helping to get them out of abusive situations. Things that adults, government, and civil society organizations should be doing. So much respect and compassion to them. This is not easy, and they can't do this on their own. Would love to support them if I can. So, Kimberly, thank you for that. I suspect perhaps maybe we can put you in touch with those young people. And, because I think Kimberly, of course, is a Grenadian in the diaspora who does a lot of movement work as well. And I think you can learn a lot from her as well. So, Alyssa, of course, as you said, we said we were supposed to have the minister here. So if the minister was here, and if you had an opportunity to speak with the Prime Minister when you delivered the letter to the office of the Prime Minister on Wednesday, what would you be saying to them?
Well, first of all, we would be saying that we would like you guys to take us very seriously, because these are issues that have been going on. And we would ask the question, if these are continuous issues our nations have, why do we not see the change we need to see? Why is this thing an ongoing problem if you, like, multiple governments have come through and this has still been an issue? Then, you know, what is more important than protecting your nation's people, right? What is more important than protecting the women and the young children in the country? We would ask them these questions because it's important to know where our government's focus lie. Like, yes, international relationships are very important, but you have your nation's people to also consider, right? And we would ask, because, you know, an anonymous whistleblower gave us some information, right, on some of the stuff that her ministry has, the statistics that they put out, right? And we have, like, that there is no specific data on gender-based and domestic violence. So, right, my recommendation as a Grenadian is that we need to do more surveys. We need to gather more information on abuse of men and women and children, because everyone is suffering. And I think when we get the chance to speak to them, hopefully, I don't think that after us being on so many public platforms that the government would be able to ignore us, because it would be very suspicious if they do. When we get to speak to them, we will have to push for them to come to the table and discuss why the changes have not been made and how do they plan to make them in the future, because they're in a little bit of hot water, because even if they try to hide it, we will continue to be behind them, asking questions and pushing for upward mobility.
And for you, this is non-partisan, it's non-political, because as you said, these issues have been there, because you know how it is in Grenada, right? You advocate, then they suspect that your advocacy is coming from one camp or the other. You know how that works in the society. Are you prepared for that backlash?
100% we're prepared for that backlash. And I think it's very interesting how the backlash can come, you know, because we live in a society that is very partisan. I'm not talking to you because you yellow. I'm not talking to you because you green, right? This is not the time for party politics, right? Because under both parties, people have suffered, right? It doesn't matter which party you're from. If your husband is beating you, he's still going to beat you, right? If you're going through financial abuse, it doesn't matter which party you're from, you're going to be financially abused. So we need to keep the partisan out of the conversation, because if it was a party-based thing, I don't think this would be an issue, because no, if it was a party-based thing and only people who were voting green were seeing greener pastures, I think we'd either have a sway to everyone voting green or yellow trying to change the issue so that more people come to their side, because they're showing that they're equal in protecting people. So I can't wait to see how many people will shun me or tell me they didn't expect me to be like this, or you voting this side or that side, because it's not true, right? I'm working for the betterment of people, our group is working for the betterment of people. And I think we've gotten help from people who vote for both parties. And we want to see less animosity between parties and more animosity to the people in power who are doing nothing to protect our people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Zinzi, I will come over to you now, and of course, you know, our families and our citizens with disabilities. You know, that is a critical component of this, Zinzi, and that's why I'm so happy that you're able to join us, because I think sometimes, and you know, citizens with disabilities, they they sometimes are especially vulnerable in some cases, right? And so I think, Zinzi, that is so critical. But I want to go over to you now for some closing comments as we wrap up today's program.
Yes, most definitely. Thank you for having me. So, the whole reason why I am really involved in this movement is to make sure that persons with disabilities have a say in the gender-based violence movement, because sometimes when you don't experience the things that we do, you don't know how to advocate for persons with disabilities. But as someone that is directly affected by a lot of the issues as a person with a disability, it is important for me to speak up about it and for me to be that active voice. And so, even when we were writing up this document, I made sure to look through this document and ensure that persons with disabilities are included so that we don't forget one aspect of our society, because oftentimes you would see that a lot of policies and this and that is being changed, and we kind of subconsciously forget about persons with disabilities. So I would say that it is very important when we think about advocacy, when we think about making changes in society, we think about the most vulnerable groups in our society and we put them at the forefront along with everyone else. And that is what I am here for, and that is what I'm lending my voice to, so that we can be included in this matter as well. So thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely, Zinzi. Thank you for appearing on the Bubb Report this week. And Alyssa, we'll go over to you for closing comments now.
So my main thing is that I would like for everyone who's listening to the program to reach out to us, because we're very open to conversation, to advice, to any help you would like to give us. I would like to say a very happy International Women's Day once again to all the women listening to the program. I hope you're having a great day. I'm going to say that to the people in power, our ministers and our Prime Minister, I hope that you do reach out to us soon and give us some confirmation that you read it and you're ready to work with us. And I hope that this goes very well, because I think that it's powerful and progress in the nation starts small, but we need to get the ball rolling. I would like to thank you for having us on here today, and I wish you a very good day.
Mm-hmm. And on a personal note, Alyssa, I found out last week that you and I attended the same primary school, as well as Ruana attended the same primary school, which is this Primrose RC St. Joseph's RC School in Primrose. You are from the community, and I'm absolutely certain that our teachers are very proud of us.
Very proud. Might even be a little surprised.
Very surprised, because in my case, I was a very quiet, reserved. My mom was a very quiet person, so my sometimes my parents, my teachers from Rose, they were like, "That's not the kid we knew." But people change, people grow up. So thank you again, ladies, for appearing, and happy International Women's Day again.
Thank you for having us, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Viewers and listeners, of course, this brings us to the end of another edition of our program. As we said at the start, we won the category, the People's Choice category for Best Current Affairs Program in Grenada. We want to again thank all of you who voted for the media awards event that occurred last night, and my dear uncle Dickie Bubb accepted on our behalf. So again, thank you all who voted. Thanks to the whoever nominated us. I did not nominate myself. I don't like the spotlight like that. I don't like self-flagellation, self-praising is not something I do. But certainly thank all of you who voted and who put that expression of confidence in the work that we do here on the Bubb Report. Now, just a quick update. Next week, the program will not be live. However, we will still have a program in the 10 o'clock time slot. I will be away. So the program will not be live, but we will definitely have a program next week as well. So we want to thank you on behalf of my producers. I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellen Bubb, wishing everyone a pleasant week ahead, and we'll see you next week for another installment of the Bubb Report. Take care. Bye-bye.
Don't go there.
You are a technocrat. I mean, you can speak to whether or not it was appropriate or inappropriate for that to occur. Would you have done that as a permanent secretary?
Politicians get the information from wherever source that they can.
That's going to be the extent of your answer.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
There's a lot of noise around the data protection bill that, in my respectful view, is not warranted.
I was one of those making noise, and it's simply because I was concerned about that specific section 33.
Don't go there.
Are you going to be offering yourself up as political leader of the party?
I see you've called me have a much more than diplomatic passport. I don't mind that.
Don't go there.
What is the relationship like between you and your leader, Dr. Mitchell, your boss, Dr. Mitchell?
I'm not sure how to explain how to answer this question at this time. I prefer not to answer.
Don't go there.
They said that you approached the bank for the loan before the election and that it only materialized after the election. There are also conflicting reports around the quantity of monies that were received. What is the reality here?
People try to extort the truth and to make all kinds of things about it. I just keep quiet. So if you notice, I was really and truly quiet about the whole matter.
Well, except with not with the New Today newspaper. The New Today newspaper reported on this, so I'm not too sure you were quiet on this. Go ahead, Honorable. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to answer your question, right?
Don't go there.
I think we just spoke at length about the regularization framework. So
yes, we did. But let us talk. Let us talk, Prime Minister. Let us talk about the workers who are dismissed.
The Bubb Report. We go there.
Hi, everyone. The Bubb Report is committed to being fearless, balanced, and independent, bringing you the stories that matter most without compromise. Now, do us a favor. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. You can also watch us on GBN TV every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Catch us on WPG10 television every Sunday at 8 p.m. Your support helps us to keep journalism free from bias and influence. And together, we can make sure every voice is heard and every fact is verified. Thanks for watching.